Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you're all ready for another story with the OZARK'S Woodsman. So, this story here is going to take you back to when I was about 13 or 14 years old. There's a lot going on in this story, like a lot from that morning until the next day. Okay? That's how long this story is. So, make sure you went to the bathroom, you got your soft drink, you got your snacks, you had a smoke, whatever it is you got to do to get ready because you need to buckle in. We're fixing to get this party started. Let's go. Okay, y'all. I hope you're ready. This story is from when I was 13, maybe 14. Could have been right in the middle. No, it wouldn't have been in the middle because it would have been during deer season. So I definitely would have already had my birthday and everything. So let's see. I'm thinking probably 13. Yeah, probably 13. Because I wasn't really quite ready to go in the woods by myself yet. I mean, I knew how to get out because the last time I got lost, but still wasn't real, like confident in myself and my abilities to find my way out if I got lost. But I was working on it. So, anyways, I got a friend who's still a really good friend, best friend from high school, and our friendship probably started actually more like junior high, but his name was Buddy, and his dad was military, Army, and he was a drill sergeant. So this guy was a little bit edgy, and he was a really nice guy. He just didn't tolerate very much ignorance. You know what I mean? He didn't have very good patience when it come to making the same mistake over and over, right? So once they say it, they want you to do it, and that's the end of it. So, anyways, I got invited to go deer hunting with them, which I was like pretty stoked about it because they always got a lot of deer every year, and nobody was ever allowed to go hunting with them because his dad was just so strict. You know what I mean? Me and Buddy, we was pretty close. I stayed night over there all the time. We was pretty good buddies. And his dad decided to invite me this year for deer season. So I was pretty stoked. I was like, yes. You know what I mean? So, anyways, I get all my stuff. We go to his house and I stay the night. Now back then you could take everything with you to school. Deer rifle, hunting knife, all of it. So my friend Buddy, he lived right by the school. As a matter of fact, our cross country track, part of it, went right behind his house and looped back around down toward the school. It was just a little short training track. I think it was a mile long, maybe a little bit longer, not much. So Friday, when I went to school, I took all my hunting clothes, my rifle, my hunting knife, everything on the bus. Get to school, you put everything in your locker, you lock your locker, everything's fine. Nobody said nothing. Nobody did nothing ignorant. Everybody was cool. So that evening, we bring our stuff. I get my stuff out of the locker. When school's out, we walk up to Buddy's house. No big deal. Well, when we get there, I've got a 30-30, Winchester 30-30. So we get there, we get everything unloaded and packed into his room and all my stuff and my gear, and I'm going through it. I don't have no ammo. So where we live, you can't just jump in the car and drive 30 minutes and get ammunition. It was actually more like a 45-minute to an hour drive, depending on which way you went. One way was a little bit farther, about an hour and a half. That's to get ammo. So it wasn't like we could just go get some ammo now. And I didn't have any. So I was pretty upset. I was like, man, no, I can't go hunting. We can't get no ammo. We didn't have cell phones. I couldn't call my mom and be like, hey, mom, could you bring me some bullets? That didn't happen, right? Now, we did have landlines, but my mom wasn't going to bring me ammunition this far. And it really wasn't that far, but she just wasn't going to do it. She had other stuff going on. It wasn't going to happen. It was my fault. I shouldn't have forgot it, right? That's just how it was. So I was pretty bummed out thinking I wasn't going to get to hunt. Well, my buddy's dad, which his name was Buddy, so this is kind of confusing, but Buddy's dad decided that he would let me borrow one of his rifles. Now, this was a big deal. You didn't just borrow another man's rifle. People just didn't do that when I was growing up. And they still don't, I don't think. Anyways, so he's going to let me borrow his Remington 270 with the Leopold scope. Now, guys got to remember, I know what a Remington is, and I understood what was so important about taking care of this rifle. This rifle was in mint condition. So I was pretty nervous about even touching this rifle. Well, it had a Leopold scope on it, and I didn't know nothing about scopes. I didn't know that this Leopold scope was super expensive and was probably worth more to him than the rifle. I didn't realize that. But I knew that everything was real important and that I couldn't mess nothing up. I couldn't scratch this rifle. I couldn't do anything to damage this rifle. This thing, I had to treat this like I was carrying a real baby, right? And so I'm stoked. I'm excited. Well, where we're going hunting, I've never been before. Now, where I grew up, there's Mark Twain National Forest everywhere. Like literally, you could pull off the road between the two towns, the one I lived in and the one where I went to school, just about anywhere, and you would be in Mark Twain National Forest. I mean, it was all around you, right? Smack in the middle of it. Okay, so that was pretty nice growing up. Anyways, I was going to a spot where I'd never ever been before. Didn't have a clue. I was told just walk that way until you see a field, sit down, wait. So I was like, all right, whatever. So we get up in the morning, we load up, we drive down this dirt road. Now this is crack like frickin' still an hour before daylight. You know what I mean? This ain't in the morning. This is like 4 o'clock in the morning, way before daylight. Like I still don't understand why we went out there so early. I still don't. Army, freaking army guys, taking everything way too serious. So, anyways, he drops us off. Buddy, he goes across the road into the woods. I don't know where he was headed, but I was told when I got out to just walk straight in a straight line, and I would hit a field after a couple hundred yards. Little clearing, little field. And I was like, all right. So we take off. I do not have a flashlight. It was pretty bright moon. I remember that. Like, it wasn't like I was walking with my eyes closed or nothing. I could see a little bit, like the moon was lighting up the woods good enough to where I wasn't running into trees or nothing, you know. I could see a sticker patch and all that, and everything was running smooth, you know. And it's getting to where I can kind of see where the woods are starting to thin out a little bit, like maybe this field is coming up, you know what I mean? So I'm just trekking along, man. I got this rifle. I'm holding it close, and I'm holding it like trying to protect this thing with my life. And I'm not paying attention to what's right in front of me, you know what I mean? Because I'm just looking forward ahead and trying to see what's going on out in front of me. Moving slow because it's dark and I'm really not wanting to spook anything up. I probably walked past half a dozen deer bedded down and didn't know it, you know what I mean? They're not going to jump unless you're causing a threat. They'll just hold still and let you walk right on by. So I was slipping through the woods. I'm trying to be quiet. I'm going slow. I can't hardly see. It's kind of pretty much dark, but it's moonlit pretty good. You know, okay, you guys get the scenario. Can you picture it? Can you picture it? Okay, I'm sure you can. So I'm thinking everything's good, you know. I'm just a little kid fixing to go kill a big deer. They told me they'd seen big bucks over there and blah blah. And of course they could have been just saying that to get me excited, you know. Them older guys, they sure would trick us a lot when we was little. Anyways, you know, I'm thinking, all right, here comes the field, everything's getting better. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, whoom! I fall forward. My instincts is to put my hands out, right? I don't think about no tucking and rolling and landing on my back or none of that stuff. I just start falling forward. I've got this gun. First thing I do is put the gun out to break my fall. Oh, it was awful. So I hit the ground, and what it was is there was a really old fence running through them woods. I mean, this fence had to have been from like 1930 or 1920. It was the, you know, sapling fence post, the whole deal. The barbed wire was so old that I can't believe it didn't break when I tripped on it. But it was only about a foot and a half off the ground. It was the very bottom strand. The posts had been, they were falling over a little bit, right? Almost to the ground. And so that very last strand was a perfect trip line. And I mean, it got me. I hit the dirt. I get up. I look at this gun. I'm checking it out. Now, luckily, there's a lot of leaves on the ground. So I'm thinking everything's cool, you know. So I'm looking at the gun. There's no scratches on it. I mean, the stock looked good still. I was touching it, making sure I didn't feel any blemishes nowhere. And the stock was in good shape. I was like, whew, that was a close one. So then I'm looking at the scope and everything looks good. It don't look broken or nothing. I look through it. I can see through it. I'm like, perfect. Everything's good. Got lucky, right? Okay, so I thought I got lucky. So I get up and I'm thinking, no biggie. I'll just keep going. I'm heading for that field. So I keep trucking. I get towards the edge of this field, and I'm pretty sure this is where they were telling me to go. So when I get to the edge of this field, I come out right in the corner, right? I'm thinking, this is perfect. So I sit down, I find a spot to sit down where I can pretty much see the whole field, but there's like these humps in the field, and I'm not liking that I can't see over these humps. And well, there's this great big oak tree. I mean, this thing was huge, and it had the big limbs that were real low to the ground, low enough to where I could climb up in that oak tree. And so after I sat there and it got daylight, and I've looked at this rifle real good again, make sure I haven't done anything to it. I'm thinking, we're good. I can't believe I didn't hurt this rifle any. I'm thinking everything's going my way. So it's light enough I can climb up this tree safely and see what I'm doing and not drop this rifle, right? Because that's the thing I'm worried about is climbing this tree and then dropping that rifle. Well, I get up the tree about, I don't know, 10 or 12 foot, high enough to where I could see over them humps, and that's all I was wanting to do. And then once I get up in this tree, I notice that back behind one of these humps was this real old house, old homestead. Little, like, two or maybe even a 3-room house, like literally. It was kitchen, dining room, I think 2 bedrooms, and that was it. You know what I mean? There wasn't a bathroom or nothing in it. There wasn't no running water. Okay, so this was an old homestead building on a rock foundation, where they stacked the rocks up. Okay, so I was like, man, that's pretty cool, right? So I'm sitting in this tree and I'm checking out that old homestead. I'm looking for deer once in a while, but I'm really more interested in that old homestead. I got the scope out and I'm looking into the building and I'm trying to see through the windows and see what's in there. There's nothing in there. Basically, I was being 13, 14. I was being a teenager and I really wasn't paying attention to hunting. Got sidetracked pretty quick. But eventually, while I'm sitting there, and I only sat in that tree for maybe an hour and a half or something, because it got hard to sit up there, started hurting my butt and stuff. And I was like, but while I was up there, right before I decided to get down, because that's when it always happens, right when you decide to move, boom, the big buck shows up. So this buck comes popping out of the woods in this field, basically right behind where I had walked out, like it was following my trail. Odds are I was on a deer trail or something when I come out to the woods. But it came out of the woods in the same place I came out. If I'd have been sitting there where I was supposed to be sitting there where I sat first, I could have speared this thing. That's how close it would have come out to me. So I get all jacked up and I'm in this tree and I'm thinking, man, this is perfect. I'm going to get this big old buck. When I say big old buck, I was 13, 14, and I think it was in all reality like an 8-pointer. It wasn't really that big, but to me it was huge. So I pulled down on this buck, and this gun is supposed to be dead on, nail driver, right? I shoot. I'm dead on. Shoot. Miss. This buck just stops. He starts looking around. He don't run off or nothing. He's just looking. I'm like, dang, how'd I miss him? So now I take my time and I start slowing down my breathing. I'm doing everything my dad taught me, my stepdad taught me to do, when it comes to shooting. So I get myself calmed back down. It only takes a couple seconds. Got a buck, he jumps. He kind of takes, he does a few steps. He jumps, takes a couple. He's looking around. And I notice I don't see bark flying, dirt flying, nothing, right? I'm like, how am I missing this deer? I can't figure it out. So I jack another round in. Well, now by the time I get the third round jacked in, he starts walking and he's looking around. He's nervous. He's flickering his tail. He's thinking about making a run for it. So I'm like, I gotta hit this deer. This thing's big. So I take one more shot at him. I get right. I mean, man, I zoom the scope in. I'm right on his heart. There's no way I can miss. And I said, like that. He stopped. He's looking around. I said, missed him. He took off running after that one. Like, man, what the heck? That sucks. So I climbed down the tree. I'm like, this gun's off. And I start looking at it, once I get down, I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, how can I miss? This is supposed to be like the best rifle he owns. There's no way it's off. He shoots coyotes with it all the time. Why am I missing? Well, turns out when I tripped over that fence, which I didn't notice it at first, but there must have been a rock somewhere that hit that scope right where the front lens comes down into the neck of the scope, or the bottle. Here, I got a little 22 here. Which my mount is right up to it. But right there, where this lens comes into the body of the scope, I don't know what you'd call this, the tube, scope tube. Right there, a rock had hit that Leopold scope. Right there. Now, his mounts weren't like mine. And it bent that lens. That lens was off center a little bit. It definitely was not where it was supposed to be. Okay. Dang it, I got so much stuff around. I gotta get this around, man. I don't know what all to take. Anyways, so now I'm like, dang, I'm screwed, right? I won't be able to hit nothing now with this scope like this. And plus, I'm sick to my stomach and worried to death about how much trouble I'm going to get into now. Never get to go deer hunting with my friend again. And it's all over now because I tripped over that stupid barbed wire, right? Well, I can't go walking back to the road yet because, for one, I don't even know when they're going to be picking us up. And that was honest God truth. They pretty much just hunted all day. You know what I mean? You just went out to the road at dark. So you was going to be in the woods all day. You better have some crackers and water. So, which we did. So I'm thinking I'm out here till dark. I can't hit nothing with this rifle because I messed the scope up. There's no way I'm going to try to push that lens back in place, which I might have been able to. I might have been able to just push it over and click. It would have went right back. I don't know. I know he fixed it. It wasn't that big a deal afterwards. So I decide I'm going to go check out that old homestead. So I walk across this field and I get over this old homestead. When I get inside this thing, there's no windows or nothing. I mean, it's on the verge of collapsing. Within a couple years, this thing is going to be a pile of lumber. It was probably, I shouldn't have probably even been in there. But, young and dumb. So I went on in, I'm checking it out. And then I realized, well, man, I can see all four corners of this field. I could see the whole field real good from inside this house. Even most of the tree where I was sitting, right? So I'm like, I'm just going to sit here and see if any deer come through here. And none did. I sat there. I sat there for a couple hours. It started getting close to noon, 11 o'clock, noon, something like that. I'm like, I'm out of here. So I leave the homestead, walk back across the field. I start heading back towards the road, towards the barbed wire fence that tripped me. That's where I'm headed. I'm heading back to the road. I'm just going to get close to the road, and then at dark, I'll be able to just walk out. Boom. So I start heading back, and when I get just about to the fence where I tripped, the woods opens up real nice, and the sun shining through. There's a pretty nice oak tree. Wind, if I sat at this tree, would be right in my face. Perfect looking down in this little valley. I was like, man, this good spot. I'll just sit here for a couple hours and, maybe something will come up. Can't shoot it, but good spot to sit down, right? So I go sit down, real nice spot, right by this oak tree. It kind of dipped in a little bit, it was like a little pocket. Perfect spot to sit down, man. Wind was off of me. I was doing pretty good. It was right in my face, but I mean, I was ducked down in this little. I wasn't getting eat up by the wind like I was when I was out in the open. You know what I'm saying? So it's a little bit of a wind block. Just hit me in my face. I end up falling asleep. The, the sun's shining on me, and I get all warm in this spot because I'm basically out of the wind. Just a little bit hit me in my face, and kind of in this little dugout spot. I mean, it was nice. And I pass out. I think I probably ate some snack crackers. Anyways, I fall asleep and take a nap. I'm like, a gun's off. I can't screw it. Taking a nap. So I fell asleep. I don't know. I probably slept for a couple hours, at least. I think it was around 2:30 or so when I woke up. And I heard something, right? That's what woke me up was I heard something. And so I was like, I just kind of opened my eyes. I didn't move or nothing because I still know I'm in the woods hunting. Even though I took a nap, as soon as I wake up, I'm in the woods hunting. So I just open my eyes and start looking around like this. I'm like, I know I heard something sneaking up on me. Well, I don't see nothing. So I kind of sit up a little bit when I'm looking around. There's nothing, right? So I'm like, it must have been a squirrel. Because they'll crawl right down on top of you when you're sleeping. They're not scared. So I decided I'm going to go ahead and go back to sleep. So I kind of cuddle back down into that little dugout spot. I'm going back to sleep, and I don't know. I was probably hard to say because I don't know exactly when I fell asleep. But it didn't feel like I'd been asleep very long. And I heard a noise again. So this time, I wake up. I know something's there, and it ain't a squirrel. And so I'm looking around. I'm trying to figure out what I just heard. And I look over to my left, and there's two eyeballs looking right at me. And I'm like, it scares me at first. Scares me at first because all I seen was the eyes, the eyeballs looking out. I was like, holy crap, what's that? So I grabbed my gun, and what had happened was a doe and her fawn, or yearling. It wasn't a fawn, it was a yearling. But a doe and her baby had bedded down at a tree that was only about, I mean, it was within 10 yards. If I would have had a knife, I could have thrown it at it and probably got it. Well, I had a knife, but not one I was going to throw. But had my old buck knife. But anyways, this deer was right there. It was just like right the next tree over. That's where it was laying with its baby, and they were all balled up in a little ball, doing the same thing I was doing. Right? We was both taking naps. It was nap time for the woods, y'all. so, so I saw them deer, and I couldn't shoot them. There wasn't nothing I could do. So I just kind of looked at them. That doe, she looks at me, and she's flickering her tail. She's not snorting or nothing. She's just looking at me. I'm looking at her. I'm like, I'm going back to sleep. I laid back down and went back to sleep. Now, I slept until probably at least another hour and a half. It was around 4 o'clock. It was starting to get dark. when I woke back up and I looked over and that doe was gone, that baby was gone. But now it's just a little bit, I got about an hour and it's going to be dark. It's going to be too dark to see in the woods anyways, and I'm not tripping over that fence again. I'm not going to do it. So at the time, I don't even know it was a barbed wire fence, to be honest. I don't even know what tripped me yet. I know that it was a fence down. I don't know what it looks like or nothing because when it tripped me, it was dark and I didn't really get to see how high the wire was or nothing. Excuse me. So I'm heading back and I want to find this freaking trip line so I don't trip over it again. So it's a little bit daylight still. So I find it and then I realize what it was. It's this old fence from freaking who knows when, probably when that house was built, that old homestead. I mean, this fence had to be from that era, right? It was old and it was in the middle of the woods. I mean, there's no reason for this fence to even be there anymore because this was Mark Twain National Forest. Shouldn't have been a fence out there, but yeah, there was. And I noted it for the next time. For the next time, I might get to go hunting. So I make it out to the road. It's dark, dark 30. So we get out there. Buddy's there waiting already. He's got a flashlight. I didn't have a flashlight because I didn't bring a flashlight. So my bad, right? So, anyways, just like the bullets, forgot my flashlight and forgot my ammo. Two of the most important things to have when you're going deer hunting, besides the rifle and a knife. Okay, so I left half of what I needed. So I get back to the road. Me and Buddy, we hook up. He's got storage. He shot a little, I think a forked horn, little 4-pointer. So he had a buck sitting there by the road, and he'd already field dressed it. We knew how to do that. And so I didn't get none. I told him about what happened. He's like, "Well, we just won't tell my dad. Maybe he won't notice." I'm like, "Oh, he's gonna notice, buddy. He's gonna notice that his scope isn't straight anymore." He's like, "Well, we won't tell him tonight. We'll tell him tomorrow. Maybe he'll see it tomorrow." I'm like, "Okay, whatever, dude. Your dad, whatever." I didn't agree. I wanted to tell him right away, just to get it all squashed right then. So, anyways, we didn't tell him till the next day, and then yeah. So, so we wait for his dad and his dad's buddies to get back. They show up. They got a truck full of deer. Like everybody got one, right? And I can't remember if there was 4 or 5 people in this hunting party, but there was a bunch, and they was stacked up in the back of that truck like cordwood. Just saying. I mean, a heap of deer in there. I was like, God dang, everybody got one but me, and I could have got one if I didn't hit the trip line, right? I'm pretty sure I definitely would have smoked that buck if I didn't hit the trip line. So we get back to his house. We all get loaded up. I'm sick to my stomach about this rifle. Nobody says nothing. I go put the rifle back in the gun cabinet like nothing happened, and unloaded everything, of course, gun safety first. Well, the next morning we get up, me and Buddy, we go to his room. We stay up pretty much the whole night talking about deer hunting. I tell him everything that happened to me, and he's laughing. He thinks it's funny. I did not think it was funny one bit. So then the next morning comes around. We get up. His mom's super cool. She already had breakfast made, a whole deal. You know what I mean? All the other hunters, they were all still there. They were camping out in the backyard in tents and stuff, right? His buddies from the army. So he had a deer hanging thing in his backyard, kind of like a engine hoist. What are they called? I don't know. You guys know what I'm talking about. It was a frame he made to hang deer from and skin them. And so By the time we get up and get around and eat breakfast, they're already skinning deer. Well, I noticed that in the kitchen, there's some meat grinders and big old box of bacon fat and all kinds of stuff sitting out. And I was like, what's going on here? So we get outside, and for some reason, some of these deer weren't field dressed. I don't understand that. But some of these deer still had the guts in them, and that he was hanging them and gutting them. So we go out there. I'd seen this happen a million times. Gutted and field dressed, hung and gutted, and all this, right? I've seen it. So I go out there to watch his dad do it, because everybody's got their own style, their own way of doing things. So I'm standing out there watching him, and he's actually just getting done skinning the hide off of one, right? So once he would get the hide skin, get them gutted, and then skin the hide off of them, they would take this deer down, go lay it on a table, picnic table, and them other guys over there with their knives, they'd start cutting this thing up, separating everything. It was it was pretty well organized. They had it going, man. There was meat and knives and stuff just flinging everywhere. This actually goes into something I said in my last deer hunting video about two knives on one carcass. It's dangerous. I seen a couple of them guys stab each other on accident. It happens. Just too much going on. If they just keep going, they didn't stop. Dang it, you got me. Anyways, crazy, crazy army dudes. But I decide I'm gonna pay attention to Buddy's dad, and he hangs another deer with the guts in it. Now you guys got to remember, I've seen deer gutted 100 million times, but I've never gotten the stomach of one. I never gotten the guts. I never seen anybody else getting the guts. So I'm standing there watching him, and he's got this thing hanging up by its feet, so its guts are all bulged out and its ribs and loaded forward. And he starts at the top and he's cutting down. And I don't know if he was just tired or not paying attention, but he got down close to the sternum and went right through that gut. That's the first time I'd ever smelt that. And so when he was coming down through there, I heard this release of air, right? It was gas in that stomach. Oh, that's an awful smell, you guys. That is an awful smell. So, I've only smelt it a couple times, and it smelt the same every time. But, or both times, I should say, all three, whatever. Anyways, I started throwing up. That gas come out of that deer stomach, hit me right in the face. Cause I mean, I'm standing right beside the guy, trying to learn, watching. Whew, it hit me. Hold on. And I mean, I start throwing up instantly. Ooh, I was going. His dad was laughing so hard. He thought that was so funny. He's like, I thought you was a country boy. I'm trying to tell him I never, never gotten a gut before. You know what I mean? And, I'd never experienced that. That never happened to me before, right? All this time, I'd never gotten the gut, and how I understood, definitely understood why my stepdad, always told me don't get in the gut, don't gut shoot them, don't stab the gut when you're, it was always real important that you didn't get in the gut. So I never got in it. Oh, so anyways, that happened. And he's laughing and he's finishes this thing out and gets it all cleaned out so that none of that matters, right? He gets it cleaned out. Ah, so so anyways, I've had enough of that. So I go back in the house, me and Buddy, because Buddy was out there too. He was laughing. Apparently, he had experienced that before. It wasn't the first time his dad got in the gut because it didn't bother him at all. Whew, bothered me. Thinking about it's making my face sweat. So we go back in the house because I can't handle this no more. And we're going to go in there and, see what his mom's doing. Because they're carrying deer meat in. These guys butchering it. They're taking it in. Something's going on inside. So we went in. Sure enough, his mom's in there with a hand grinder making burger, right? They're bringing in all the stuff that they wanted cut into burger, or ground into burger, I should say, first. So she's grinding that meat, adding bacon fat. I was like, right on. As soon as she sees me and Buddy, she's like, hey, you boys get over here. So you know what we started doing. We was over there grinding meat, grinding meat. So we did that until Buddy's dad got done skinning and field dressing all these deer, which I think there was five total. Five total. Now, these guys that killed their deer, Buddy's dad was not processing their deer. He was only processing his and Buddy's. Them guys loaded their deer up. What they didn't take in, they loaded up in their own coolers. Everybody left. So eventually it was just the Buddy's family and me, and we're all processing deer. Now his dad had that bandsaw for cutting meat, and he had an electric motor, I think from a grinder, and he had it rigged up to where it was on a meat grinder. His mom was doing the hand grinder because no one was allowed to use this electric meat grinder until Buddy's dad was in there watching. Because he made this thing, and I guess maybe it was sketchy. I don't know. I never got to use it. I just watched him use it, and it worked good the whole time he was using it, and everything went a lot faster. But that was a pretty intense moment because once all that got over, it still it still makes me a little bit nervous talking about it. I had to tell his dad what I had done. And man, his eyes. When I told him that I had tripped over a barbed wire fence because I couldn't see it, I could see then he started to be a little understanding, right? And then when I explained to him how I'd shot at that buck 3 times and missed, then he started thinking it was funny. I didn't think it was funny at all, but he thought it was funny that I got so jacked up over that buck and I missed it because I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. It was all my own fault. So he goes and he gets his rifle and he takes a look at it. Well, the stock and everything was untouched. Nothing got scratched, no dents, no, little dimples, nothing. Only thing that happened was that scope was, crooked. And he's like, oh, don't worry about it, Matthew. Don't worry about it, Matt. He's like, I'll get that fixed. They got a lifetime warranty on them. No big deal. I was like, oh, okay, right on. And he did. He ended up, I don't know if he got it fixed or got a new one or whatever, but it wasn't no big deal. And I was allowed to use it again when we went deer hunting the next season. So I didn't get kicked off the team. I didn't get banned from the armory. I got to stay in the loop. And I still never shot nothing with that rifle. The next year we went hunting, I didn't get nothing that year either. But and then by then I was actually moved out, and that's when I started logging with a friend of mine, which I got to tell you guys some of those logging stories, man, some good ones. And that happened when I was around 15 and a half, 16. I moved out of the house and moved in with my buddy and his parents and little brother and little sister and started logging, and did that for quite a few years. And anyways, that's the trip line, deer hunt trip line story. Always pay attention where you're going. Never forget your flashlight. Always bring your own bullets, so you never have to borrow somebody else's rifle and end up breaking it or messing it up. But yeah, I got some more stories coming soon. DIY on the uh campsite trip line. I'm gonna make a campsite trip line, so there'll be a video on that. I got the deer meat cured in salt. Front shoulders are already done, really, but I'm leaving everything there till it's all done, so I can smoke it all at the same time. And then I'll have some more stories. Probably do some logging stories or something. Pretty good ones. And I got the camping trip coming up in January. Nervous about that one, you guys. I know everything's gonna be all right, but thing is, there's been some Sasquatch reports around this place. I was gonna try to keep that on the down low, but yeah, the January camp out could actually turn into something way more than just a camp out. So you guys are definitely gonna want to subscribe. Hit the like button if you like my video. Go to notifications. Hit the bell. So when something does happen, and it probably will, you'll be the first one to watch the video on it. Might even be live. Who knows? Depends on how nervous I am. Okay? And remember this, no matter what, no matter what, millions of people love you and care about you. So if you're having a bad time, you're feeling down, things don't seem like they're ever going to change, trust me, it will, right? It's going to happen. But remember, no matter what, every time you fall down, you just got to get back up. You need help, you call a friend, you call a family member, go outside, talk to your neighbor, call 988. Okay? They'll listen to you. They'll get you on the right path. They'll help you out. Whatever you do, don't give up. You got to squash the little stuff. Keep on keeping on. And remember, God loves you. God bless everybody. Peace.